All right, we are joined now by Bill Tufts, Director of Tournament Productions with APA. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing well, Becky. How are you?
We're doing good.
Jason, too.
What's up? What's up?
Not much. Just doing tournament things.
Yeah?
I bet.
Yeah, you guys caught me here in my office. Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that you're taking us back to Vegas.
I am for third time of the year. Yes, I am.
Third time's a charm.
Third time is a charm.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, it was probably about a month ago that the news came out. The U.S. Amateur Championship will be heading to Las Vegas for the first time in like a quarter century, believe it or not, 1999.
Wow.
A little scary to think that was a quarter century ago.
That's actually
if you didn't feel old before this podcast, you feel old now. But the U.S. Amateur Championship going back to Las Vegas, and so we thought we'd have Bill on the podcast to talk a little bit about what led up to that big move and what players can expect. So, Bill, it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken, the last time we were in Strokers in the Tampa area, and we had been there for well over a decade. But after that year, APA made the announcement that they were taking the U.S. Amateur Championship out of a pool room, where it had always been throughout its history, and putting it into a hotel convention space for the first time. And I know, some of the reasons for that were to get everything under one roof, player convenience, and that kind of thing. Also kind of dress up the room a little bit more. But if you can, just kind of pick up from that point on where the event has been and kind of why it's bounced around these last couple of years.
Sure. Yeah, to speak to your point, we actually did want to take it out of the pool room, not because, strokers, there were any issues with strokers. It's a pool room, and it's limiting in what you can produce. And considering the prestige of this event, what we're asking of players, to get a trophy, basically, and to play for the pride of the game, we felt that the event, we could elevate it further. So we started our search prior to the 22 event. We ended up finding a home at the Wyndham, Orlando. And that year was great. It was the first time we moved in.
And that was 2023
Yeah, that was
now,
2023.
Right?
Yes, that was 2023. And aside from maybe an air conditioner that was running a little bit too much, I think the event was overall a net positive for everybody, and they loved the changes that we did to it. So we had all the intent in the world of going back to the Wyndham. And as a matter of fact, we were in full planning for going back to the Wyndham in 24. That would change. Actually, the opening day of our Pool Player Championships, we're kicking the doors open. We're letting all of those players in for the first time. For that event, we got the news that the Wyndham was shutting down. So that was right before my shift, kind of kept it to myself, and then eventually it broke on the news, so later that day we were addressing it full scale, but the search was on again for another home. Fortunately for us, the Wyndham actually put us in touch with the Hyatt Regency down in Orlando. It's just down the street from where the Wyndham was. And we were able to negotiate a deal based on our prior deal at the Wyndham. And this was kind of a gesture from the Wyndham and the Hyatt of, we were in a tough spot. We didn't have a lot of time, and we needed a home. So we ran the event there. I think that it was very impressive space for everyone. Great event. Everything went off without a hitch. But there were some drawbacks to that particular location long term. And I think for anybody that actually did experience it, I heard more comments from people about whether or not we would be back there. And it mostly centered around pricing.
Right.
That was as true for the players and their experience with just the food purchasing options and things like that were actually available at the hotel, as it was for us whenever we're looking at a setup. And of course, the Hyatt had a huge say in whether or not we would return. They've got to look at their business model, what works for them. And essentially, the prices were just too far apart for this event, for the scope that it is. And as much as we want to elevate this event, it was just going to be, it wasn't going to be feasible to keep it there long term.
Yeah, the Hyatt, having been there myself, was certainly a beautiful facility, but you could quickly tell that that type of facility comes with some big price tags. And as you mentioned, it's not just about the food and beverage costs for the players. I'm sure, I think we had to negotiate on parking rates, and then you start talking about the rental of the the convention space and hotel rooms, and it I'm sure it quickly got very, very, very pricey for a program that, the U.S. Amateur Championship, very prestigious, but it's also a fairly intimate program, in terms of the size, right? You've got 128 players in the open division.
Right.
You've got, 35 or 40 in the women's division. So it's not a huge amount of people. But that said, you're still talking about a pretty intensive setup time, right, Bill?
Yeah.
For a small event?
For a small event, what we're setting there, it takes some time. I think our total set days were probably 3.5 if you gave it, full time. Most of that is the rigging. So one thing that we pride ourselves on at APA is providing pool table lights. And it seems like a simple thing, right? Pool table needs a light, hang a light. That most times, more often than not, that's the most expensive thing that we can do. But it's not something that we're going to shy away from. We're not going to produce an event that doesn't have them, especially not one of prestige, not one that carries this kind of weight, right?
Yeah.
Really any of them. But, it's just not palatable. So when you're working out these deals, it's not just the hotel, but you are working with AV partners. You've got to come to terms with them and what their pricing is. And different venues have different structures for who you're dealing with and who they actually have doing this work. I will say all the partners at the Hyatt were great. They were great. I will say that particular property, though, with the types of events that they're getting, which are much larger scale, they probably, a lot of the talking I had with them, their events, while they're not pool events, they would average like the size of our pool player championships, or somewhere between there and up above even our world pool championships as far as people go. And one thing about Orlando that was quickly apparent is you don't have like the casino as a component to us selling our event. I mean, I don't want to say that our people gamble, but some of our people gamble, right?
Sure.
And
Right.
The casino floor definitely helps offset some costs because they see that influx. So when we're looking at an event that has less than 160 people,
Yeah, I mean,
and you've got to do the food and beverage and stuff, we just weren't going to meet those ends, and the price eventually would have went down to the players.
I was going to say, to put it in perspective too, I mean, this is a place in Orlando, like you're talking about like Disney World, like right up the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
They
So
were
as
talking to me about volleyball tournaments, that are 30,000
Right.
people. They don't have to do any setup. They're just selling food to them, and the USAM's not going to do that kind of business.
Yeah. So as kind of the days, faded from the calendar for 2024, I mean, I know we typically start the entry window opens for the U.S. Amateur Championship with the existing year's event. I know we had to delay that because we weren't certain on where this event was going in 2025. But, how did we go from, knowing that the existing facility wasn't going to work to landing at the Westgate in Las Vegas?
Well, knowing the search that it took us to find the USAM and all of the different hotels that we actually reached out to prior to even landing at the window back, in 23, we knew that the search might not be quick. And we were nearing the end of the year, and we recognized that it puts us in a hole for people who want to sign up for the event. They don't know where they're going to sign up for. They're kind of signing up on hope or just signing up for their prelim. We could spend months looking for a place that's better, not find one, right? I mean, that's just the reality. We might not find a fit. We certainly didn't, while a lot of places may be, maybe a slight step down from the Hyatt Regency, we certainly didn't think that our partners at Westgate were that at all. So we knew that going in, and we didn't want the event to take a step backwards. We liked where the event's at. We just want to make sure we keep it affordable for what it is. And I think all of that kind of led us back to, we've got a great partner. Yes, it does change the location quite dramatically for an event that's typically been on the East Coast. And we're cognizant of all of that, but we thought that by making the move, by making the decision, we give some clarity and some certainty to the people out there that want to sign up, or now maybe don't want to sign up. Hopefully there aren't too many of those. But it also allows us the time to continue to look for other venues in the future without having that pressure of we've got to find something. We've got to find something because, the clock's ticking. Right now, yes, the clock's ticking, but we've got a lot of lead time, and where that goes, we're not sure. We're going to find the right partners for us, and the right partners for, I mean, really the right venue for our players.
Right.
Because as you said, we haven't been to Vegas since before my time at APA.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it sounds like it's a situation where you're kind of caught between the rock and the hard place, right? Like, but I assume we're fortunate that the Westgate, because again, when you're only talking about a matter of months before an event, the fact that they had availability is a great thing for us. But I got to assume too that there's some, from your perspective, some comfort level when it comes to setup. You know, I know when you go to a new place, it's got to be a little challenging if they've never had a pool tournament, they've never hung pool table lights. The Westgate's obviously very familiar with what we do and how we do it, so that I assume that brings some comfort from your perspective.
Absolutely, and they know the pool players too. They know our customers intimately. I know that a lot of the guys that compete or a lot of the guys and women that compete in the U.S. Amateur have been to the Westgate before, and I know that is something that, again, we were cognizant of, that people do go to this place. But with those trips, with that familiarity, they don't just know what we want on our side and what we're going to do and what we execute, how we do it, but they also know what our players want when it comes to them. So we are able to negotiate better with them because they know what we are. As far as getting them up to speed, there's no getting them up to speed on the particular program. Everything moves faster, and they provide just a great environment that really provides. I mean, still Vegas, there's still a ton to do too. So I mean, there's a lot that goes into these searches, but the Westgate, there's a reason why we're there. There's a reason why we take the bigger events to Vegas too. The town itself offers quite a bit. You know, I just want to say, when we're looking for these places, it's not just, do we have a space that's got enough room for tables? And Jason, Becky, you guys know this very well. We're looking for proximity to airports, entertainment options outside of the tournament, right? What does the venue have as far as what they provide to people, entertainment, food, that type of thing? And then we get into the weeds of, how are we going to hang pool table lights? What do those costs look like? How do we get tables there? All of that stuff. And with the Westgate, it really does provide that security that we know we can execute the events there. We know that there are going to be great events there. The one question we have is, what does Vegas look like after, 25 years, 26 years of not being there for the USAM? And by having an additional year with this tournament, that gives us the time to evaluate that too, and to see where we're at, and if there's anything needed. Meanwhile, looking for other places that might be just as good, but maybe a little bit closer to home for a lot of our players.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about cities like Tampa, Orlando, Las Vegas, I mean, there's a premier destinations from globally, not just in the United States. And you see like Super Bowls and big events that go to places like these. It's a little challenging to try to best that one, I'm assuming, when you're looking for a location. But you kind of alluded to the fact that this is going to give us a little bit more time to look at some other options in the future, at least. So I'm curious, like, is this a 1 year? Is this potentially a little bit longer? Do we know, like, what after 2025, what, at least, and I realize maybe you don't have the answer now, but like, what potentially could this look like?
Well, what we'd like to do is get some stability to the event. So we are already looking at 26. That allows us, again, the opportunity to continue looking for places that fit all the criteria we're looking for, if not the Westgate. But it also provides us the opportunity to see what worked, what didn't. And in this regard, I mean, the USAM, and I don't want to shy away from the point that USAM's always been kind of an event where wherever it's at, that's where you're going to get most of your signups. It's just the nature of the beast. So knowing that we're moving it to the West Coast, away from where the majority of our base has been, that comes with some considerations, like what does this do to participation? Do we still see that? Are we still getting that same enthusiasm for the event? Married with the fact that, we are in Vegas, twice already, and a lot of the players that compete in this event go to those events too. So by trying to get that additional year, it allows us to evaluate and then maybe try to see what we can do to affect change if we need to, right? It also tests just the general idea of if we don't know where we're going to ultimately find a perfect place, and it may be on the West Coast, it may be in Vegas, it could be anywhere. What are those challenges whenever you move an event that's traditionally been held in one area to another area? If you just moved there for the 1 year, you wouldn't even know, right? You wouldn't necessarily know what you could have done to have affected anything regarding that if you just take it back somewhere else. And in the future, further down the road, you might find yourself in a situation where, you're looking again and you're going into the unknown again. And that's just something that I think from my point of view and a lot up here, we just, we've been doing that. We've been doing that while keeping it in the Southeast, but trying to find that perfect home and knowing that it's not a given. It's not a given that you're going to find the right place. And when you think you do, sometimes they tear it down. So just providing stability, letting people wrap their brains around it, seeing where we're at, evaluating, and knowing that we've got a great partner that we could continue on with, or we could pivot. Kind of gives us an opportunity to do all of that without having that pressure of we've just got to make a decision now because the event needs to happen within 2 months or 3 months like we did the last time. Not through any fault of our own, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, fair enough. I mean, it sounds like we'll have to stay tuned to see what the future holds, but I think the good news and the takeaway here is that we do have a very solid partner in a place that we are comfortable hosting the event for 2025, potentially longer if necessary, but that the doors sounds like it's open for the future, and we'll see where we land. So, Bill, we appreciate you taking the time to kind of fill everybody in just on the decision making that kind of went into this move, and I think people appreciate kind of understanding the challenges that we face and why we make the decisions we do. So, appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon, bud.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Phil.
See ya.